Hi there! For this experiment, we are going to use a pair of gloves, a mask, and a lab coat. For this experiment, we are going to use an antacid tablet. We observe it, analyze the shape, color, and odor of it. Then, we are going to break the tablet into small pieces, and we observe the changes. This is an example of a physical change, because none of the components inside of it changed. The only thing that was modified was the shape. For this second experiment, we are going to use the same pieces of the antacid tablet and a half of a cup of water. We're going to add the water to the cup where we had the antacid tablet, and then we are going to observe the changes. We see that this starts bubbling. It is called effervescence. It is a chemical reaction between the components of the antacid tablet dissolved on water. The last experiment, we are going to use Play-Doh, and we are going to observe the odor, the shape, and the texture of it. We are going to start to break it into small pieces. We can observe that this is a physical change, because none of the components were modified, just the shape of the Play-Doh.
Hi! Today we're doing some experiments, but first we gotta wear a lab coat, some gloves, and a mask. Let's go! For the first experiment we will be needing a glass and a piece of ice. We will put it inside the glass and then let it outside for around 15 minutes. Once the time has passed, you will observe the ice has melted. This is an example of a physical change because there has been no molecular alterations. It has only gone from a solid state to a liquid state. For this experiment, we will be using a large container, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a third of a cup of lemon juice, which is around 3 or 4 lemons. First, we pour the lemon juice into the container. Then, we add the teaspoon of baking soda into the lemon juice. We can observe the reaction. This reaction is called effervescing. This is an example of a chemical change because molecules are interacting between them in order to make the foam. The foam is produced by the reaction the acidity of the lemon causes with baking soda. For this experiment, we will use another large container, another teaspoon of baking soda, and a quarter of a cup of vinegar. This time we will add the baking soda first. Then, we pour the vinegar into the container. We can observe how it also effervesces. This is an example of a chemical reaction due to the interaction of the molecules to make the foam produced by the vinegar and baking soda.
Hi, I'm Daniela and we're making some experiments to see physical and chemical changes. But first I prepare myself with a lab coat, some gloves and a mask. So first we're gonna mix half a cup of milk, add a quarter cup of vinegar, and we're gonna see what happens. After a few seconds, the milk starts to curdle, so it's a chemical reaction. So for our second experiment, we have a cup of water and a teaspoon of Kool-Aid. So we're gonna mix them for a few seconds. When we're done, we can see that the components cannot be visibly differentiated, so it's an homogeneous mixture, but it's still a physical change because its structure has not been modified. So for my third and last experiment, we'll pour a teaspoon of sugar into the pan, then heat it in the stove, and mix it for a few minutes to see what happens. So after a few moments of mixing it, the sugar went from a solid state of matter to a liquid one, and from white to a brownish color.
Hi there! On today's lab, we'll see physical and chemical changes. But first, safety measures. Lab coat, gloves, mask, and goggles. All set. Let's go! For the first experiment, we'll pour a third cup of acetone in a glass. After some minutes, we could see how there was no acetone left in the glass. This means it evaporated, undergoing a physical change. Then we have this half sheet of paper. We analyze it for a few seconds. It's made out of bond paper, it's flexible, and it's odorless. We begin to break it into small pieces. Eventually, all is left are the small pieces of the original sheet of paper. This is also an example of a physical change. Finally, we have the other half of sheet of paper. It has the same characteristics as the previous one. We place it in a dish and ignite a match. Almost immediately, the paper catches fire. After a few moments, we see that the edges had burned and some of them even turn into ash. This is an example of a chemical change.